we will just kind of get started with some general introductions. And really, the point of this is an open webinar to where we'll go through the student side, how students are using Meet Your Class, and then we'll transition into admin tooling on what universities get access to when they partner with Meet Your Class. So, without further ado, my name is Blake Mishley. I'm one of the co-founders here at Meet Your Class. Uh, been working now at Meet Your Class for over about 3 years now as a way to just engage prospective students. And I will pass it along to my other co-founder and friend, Jonah.
Yeah, my name's Jonah. I serve as the COO for MeetYourClass. Thank you so much for coming. And I guess just for like some background on how we kind of got to this point, when Blake and I were seniors in high school, we were in the same grade. We were both evaluating the University of Michigan, and we were kind of in that awkward phase where I wouldn't really say many people our age used Facebook, but people were very eager to meet each other before they came to campus, whether that was to find roommates or just get a better feel for what the school would be like. So, a lot of people downloaded Facebook exclusively for the sake of joining class of 2025 groups. So, Blake and I kind of saw that as an opportunity to see like people really want to engage before they get on campus, but there might be a more optimal way to do that. So this company actually started when Blake and I were freshmen at school. The next class was going to come trickling in. It was going to be the class of 2026. And we tried to convert what we saw people doing on Facebook to Instagram. And after doing that, we kind of realized that there was so much more we could do to help students engage. And that's what kind of led to the creation of Meet Your Class. Blake, is there anything else you want to add, or should we kind of like dive in?
I think we're good to dive in, Jonah.
Okay, awesome. So I'm just gonna share my screen and I'm going to show off the student experience a bit. Uh, so feel free to hop in at any time. Um, so I'm just going to start from this Explore page and kind of show off that on Meet Your Class, every single university is listed. We basically pulled all of the universities that appear in iPads. And a student is able to come on and look up any of the schools that they're interested in. So, for example, here's one of our partners, the University of Dayton. And just to kind of like level set this, students can look at Meet Your Class and engage really at any time. So whether they're very early in the research process or even if they're an alumni, it's a place where you can kind of see the school and get a feel for it. But we see by far the largest influx of users the day that someone is admitted to a school. So a lot of students are using this as a place to basically get a feel for campus and figure out between all of the universities that they're very seriously considering which one they will fit in best. Um, so to kind of like show how students use Meet Your Class, there's two main pieces to this. So under quick access here, you'll see there's tools that we have built from the ground up to help people meet each other and get a feel for campus life. And then there's also social media groups. Really, the focus, as you can see highlighted here, is on Instagram. And I'll show off how that plays in a second. But to kind of show off the student experience a little bit, um, I'm going to start by navigating to this feed tab. So this is a place and where students basically have a discussion board and there's updates on who's joining Meet Your Class. So when students want to get into the community, they make a profile, they upload pictures and a caption describing themselves, and they're immediately listed as a new member on the site. Um, I'm not sure if I called this out, but this right now exists as a web application. So you go to meetyourclass.com/explore or whatever university name. Um, we also are releasing a mobile app in a couple of months just so people can engage even easier. But right now it's very accessible in terms of whether you on Safari or Google Chrome, you can just instantly land on it and start engaging. You don't need to download another app, although again, that is something we're adding. Um, but yeah, this is also a space where we see people come on and they can start they can ask a question or start conversations. They can launch polls, and it's a place where they can just have back and forth conversation. Um, I won't go into them, but there's also group chats where people can message back and forth, and whatnot. And then the most frequented tab on this site is the Students tab. So this basically gives a view on everyone who is looking into the institution. So the students who appear here are people who have applied, been admitted, or are committed to the school. And you can isolate exactly the people you're interested in speaking to. Specifically, you do that through this flexible search bar or through the use of traits. Um, so just as an example, say the University of Dayton has an open house and I'm from Chicago, I can instantly just look up everyone from Chicago and it'll query all of those results. Um, Additionally, maybe you might be looking for a roommate. So, like in my case, I might filter for everyone who's a male and maybe who's in like the class of 2029 was just this last cohort who came in. And then each of these instances, you can kind of click into these individual profiles. There's traits that people describe themselves with. You can direct message them right on the platform. You can get their social media handles, and all around it just helps with people finding their place on campus. Um, because a lot of people also use it to find traits. And we think in general that when people are connected with others who are in their major, or who like share the same interests, it's overall going to just increase the chances of that student coming and help build more affinity. Um, on the site, our partners also like to put resources in front of students. So for this, well, one of our partners, the Missouri S&T, I thought listed out a lot of really good examples. So I'm going to flip over to there. And um, these are basically just resources that they want to get in front of students at this stage. Um, but yeah, so that's the student experience on the platform itself. So this is accessible to anyone, but something that we recognize is that if you really want to like maximize your engagement with students, um, it's good to have a tie into the platforms that they already use on a daily basis. So our primary focus has been on Instagram, and we have a very deep integration with that. So to specifically show what that looks like, um, I'm going to toggle over to our Instagram page for the University of Dayton. So this is a page that we set up for the University of Dayton's class of 2030. And this is how Meet Your Class started, was basically we were trying to run these pages at all of the universities where we saw students launching Facebook groups. And we saw the engagement really pick up, and I'll dive into those numbers in a second. Uh, but what's important here is these are pretty specialized in terms of how students use it. They're basically pages where students introduce themselves because when we looked under the hood of the Facebook groups, that's all of the content that was getting shared. Where kind of like this, where people would say, like, "Hi, my name is Colin. This is where I go to high school." They would people share things like where they are in their decision-making process. So here you can see the Colin's 90% committed, which is kind of this feeds into the admin data that Blake's going to show off in a second. But we find that these introductions are extremely powerful, specifically when someone introduces themselves on one of these communities. So, like Colin is here, we've tracked that the average student makes connections with 51 other students. So, in every single instance, that means 51 more people that are basically binding them to the university, which is why we've seen that Meet Your Class can be very effective for yielding students. Um, so the students who post on these Instagram communities generally yield at around 4 times the rate of students who don't appear on them. Um, and that's again, we kind of like to level it to a virtual yard sign is how we describe it. When you send a student a yard sign and they stake it in their front yard, it kind of binds them to the school because the whole neighborhood thinks they're going. It brings up conversations about the school because the neighbors might walk by and say, like, "Hey, I saw you're going to the University of Dayton. Congratulations." Um, this has a similar effect. And Something else that's interesting is also you would kind of expect that people would generally want to make posts like this once they've committed, but similar to our site traffic, we see that the largest influx of students posting on these pages is the day they're admitted because they're just so excited to meet people. So even though they haven't committed to the school, like in this case where Kylan's like 90% committed, they still start making that connections. And we see that that increases the odds that they become 100% committed and become a student at the school. Um, so just like as the last thing before I flip it over to Blake, I just also wanted to show off um, that again, we generally view Meet Your Class as a tool for yield, and we think like the most important part of this for students is helping them create as many connections as possible and setting them up for success on campus. But just kind of as an added benefit, we also think that these communities have a very strong effect on the overall brand awareness for the university. So here I am on Meta Business Suite, and this is Meta's platform where you can see on platforms like Instagram the sort of engagement these accounts are getting. So this is specifically looking from August 1st to September 30th, so kind of the University of Dayton's last admission cycle. And throughout that cycle, we can see this reach metric is what I think is the most powerful. So this 361,000 refers to the number of unique individuals who saw content from the account. So kind of like relative to your university's like if your university has like a roommate finder in its housing portal and that's kind of closed off to only students who have deposited to the university, since this is on Instagram, a platform that 85% of teens use weekly, it's open so much wider. So now in this instance, when someone like Colin posts to the page, a lot of these might be students considering the University of Dayton, but it's also likely seen by Colin's friends. So in that sense, it's just making more people aware of the school. This actually had a particularly profound effect on my college experience because when I was a freshman or sophomore in high school, I remember people 2, 3 years older than me kind of like posting to Instagram where they had committed to school. And a lot of them were universities I hadn't heard of before. But now I was learning about the university through the context of someone a bit older than me who, I was friends with them on Instagram, usually because I was friends with them in real life and I had a lot of respect for them. And all in all, shed those schools in a very good light. But I'm going to pass it over to Blake to kind of dive into the types of insights. Oh, actually, wait, sorry. One last thing I want to include before Blake gets into it. Um, Part of the reason that schools partner with Meet Your Class is that we see that the engagement increases when these are official communities for the university. Um, so like in this case, you can see that we're using the official University of Dayton logo. We're labeling it as an official account for Dayton students. And when we first did this, there was actually like we had the thought that if these are like affiliated with the school, does that mean that students will engage with them less? But over the past year, we've actually seen it's the opposite. Engagement typically doubles when it's affiliated with the university. Um, so yeah, Blake.
Yeah, no, I think what's really exciting from the student side is it's just what today's students want. It's how Jonah and I met. We met through an Instagram page, and whether or not in a few years, if there's a new platform, Meet Your Class wants to be positioned to, help students connect on the platforms that they use. So with that being said, I'm going to share my screen, and for the administrative side of Meet Your Class, uh, we're going to actually go through like a presentation that goes through the what you would unlock by working with Meet Your Class. So